YouTubers, we're in an unfinished basement here and looking at a mess. This area of the basement's getting ready to be finished, and it's crazy that there are two gang boxes next to each other in the same stud bay. I think what happened here is that the electricians or somebody installed an outside ceiling fan, and so they put the white 14 gauge wire powering off of the existing 2-gang box and added another box for a ceiling fan. What's interesting is that with this ceiling fan, both the light and the fan are powered from this one device, and so this switch doesn't do anything. So the logical thing here is to consolidate this, to take out the switches, and to put in a single multi-gang box, get rid of this one, and to put this back at two devices. So we'll have one switch that controls the fan and fan speed, and another switch that controls the light. So we will take this entire box out. One of the things that's worth noting is that this white wire, this is 14 gauge wire, yet this entire circuit is fed by a 20 amp breaker. So although this has been inspected by an electrical inspector, technically this is a violation of code. And as always with any electrical project, before we get started, we'll kill the power. We didn't get very far and already we see something that ticks me off. That's a sheetrock screw. And there too, if the screw was inserted wrong somehow, the sharp tip could pierce a wire. So this is a pet peeve of mine. I've seen it a lot before, where someone drops the screw for the wiring device, they forget about it, and they just get a sheetrock screw and replace the screw that fell with a sheetrock screw. That's not how this should be done. Well, this is a different kind of controller. Although this controller does both the fan motor and the fan light, it only has two wires. Of course, you'll notice that they didn't ground it either. So that means that there's going to be a device at the canopy side. So where the ceiling fan is outside, I'm going to have to take that down and remove the canopy device that was sort of the multiplexer for this fan controller. It's not what I wanted to do, it's more work, but in the end, it's the right thing to do. I'm beginning to take the switches out of the boxes, and interestingly, I've seen this was backstab wired. And I guess in the electrician's defense, this box is super tight in terms of wires. They have 5 series of 12 gauge wires coming in. They've got the 14 gauge wire there. Interestingly, the ground on the 14 gauge jumper wire over to this box for the fan, the ground wire was not connected to anything inside here, so the ceiling fan wasn't grounded. Both boxes have been removed, and now I've got to untangle this mess of wires and put the new box back in. Something to consider as we place the new box is spacing away from the door jamb. We have to account for the width of the casing, so if we set this piece of casing in here about where it will be, you can see that from this existing 1-gang box that was above the old 2-gang, it's pretty close to the casing. To minimize the risk of having to trim the faceplate, I'm going to scab a 2x4, short section 2x4 in here so I can push the boxes over away from this door casing. We've made a little bit of progress here. The 2x4 is scabbed on, the 4-gang box is nailed on and it's level, and the 1-gang box is nailed on for the security keypad. We've got some good wire management with the GB multiple cable staples on the right. That's the red clips that you see. And then we've got just some plastic wire staples securing the other 2 wires coming down, going outside for the exterior outlet. A little more progress on the wiring. This is the rough-in with connecting the neutrals and the grounds. Connecting all the grounds in a 4-gang box can be a bit of a daunting proposition because there are so many ground wires that are needed. You're bonding all the existing ground wires, but then adding enough for the wiring devices. What I typically do is a series of 2 connections. In this particular box, there is a blue Ideal wing nut that can hold up to 6 number 12 gauge wires, and then there's a jumper from that over to a greenie with a feed through situation. So this connects all my grounds and then gives me grounds out to the wiring devices. One thing that you have to be careful about is not overloading the wire nuts. Each individual wire nut has its own rated number and size of connections. The reds typically will connect 4 number 12 wires, whereas the blues, the large blues, will connect 6 number 12 gauge wires. Here are the box and switches installed. This is a 4-way. This is a fan controller. This will control the fan light, and this controls an outdoor light. That's it. This project is done. The cover plate is back installed, and the keypad is screwed to the box. Of course, when sheetrock goes up, the switches will need to come out and the keypad will come off, but that will be somewhat farther down the road. The two 2-gang boxes have been removed, and they've been consolidated to one 4-gang box. The 14 gauge wire that jumpered between the 2 boxes, that's been removed, and even the 14 gauge wire out to the load of the ceiling fan and fan light has been removed. That's all been replaced with 12 gauge wire, and that keeps us with code on this 20 amp circuit. The wires have been routed nicely off to the sides so this bay can be insulated. The top penetrations have been sealed. Thank you for watching.